All right, everyone, we're back. Episode 23 of Shelf Space. We're all back from safe and sound from New York Comic Con. We got from across Canada, we got Charles out live from Montreal. Oh, I'm not hearing you here. Hang on. I got no audio from you guys. What the heck's going on?
Hmm.
This is not good. I can't hear Charles. I can hear Gina.
Can you hear me? Charles, speak. Charles can't hear us. I can. Yeah,
Okay.
we can't. I can't hear Charles either.
I heard him 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay,
There we
there
go.
we go. There we
Okay.
go. We're good. All right. Okay, so Charles, live out from Montreal now. We
All
got
right.
from Toronto, we got Gina
Hello.
and myself out on the west side of the country here in Edmonton. I'm Chris. So, as I mentioned, we are back from New York Comic Con, and we're going to go through that, all the statue booths there. But before we get to that, we're going to start with a movie that just came out. There's a lot of hype around this one, The Joker. Okay, so we've all three of us have seen it, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think this is weekend number 3. So that is firmly into spoiler territory. So we can freely discuss everything in this movie. So quickly, or I guess Gina, start us off with this one. You've seen it. What? Give me a rating out of 10 for this one.
Right off the bat, I'd say 7.8 out of 10.
Okay. And so, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it?
First thing I liked about it is the tone. I think having Joker in that 1970s, late 1970s, sort of New York esque setting. With the graffiti and the that the type of hopelessness of some of the public housing. That setting, never would have thought of that, but of combining the Joker character with that. I think the tone, we kind of got the tone from the trailer, and then seeing it in person, seeing the entire film, it worked. Like the tone, I think is to me is the best, one of the best aspects of the movie, and the performance was pretty good.
Okay, Charles, out of 10, what do you give this movie?
I think I give it between an 8.5 and 9. I think I liked it a little bit more than Gina did. Going into this movie, the big question was going to be what was he going to bring to the role that Heath Ledger didn't, or different than what Heath Ledger brought into it. And I thought what Joaquin Phoenix did is that he channeled into the psychotic aspect of Joker, whereas Heath Ledger was more the psychopath, the troublemaker. Whereas this Joker, the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, is more psychotic, delusional. He has hallucinations. He's not always aware of where he is or who he's talking to, and he follows whatever his brain is telling him at that particular moment. And I thought that that was a very refreshing take on the Joker that we haven't seen up until now, because none of the Jokers up until now have demonstrated that kind of psychosis. So yeah, this was a great addition to the genre, and I gave it between an 8.5 and a 9. I really liked it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I'd probably give it somewhere around an 8 out of 10, something like that. Um, I enjoyed it. I don't think it was as groundbreaking as what's being discussed around the internet, but I did enjoy it for
Yeah.
sure.
That was
So
part of my issue as well. Is that I think I walked into it with I saw it a week later,
yeah,
than a
same.
week and a half later, and I walked into it with everyone saying it's a masterpiece, masterpiece. It's very well done, but maybe I had higher expectations. Sorry, go on, Chris. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's exactly what I thought. I saw it the week after. It came out the week we were in New York, so none of us saw it. I don't think that weekend.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess that brings us to the question for this topic: is this the best Joker performance to date? What do you think, Charles?
It's almost unfair because they're not playing the same Joker. Like
Yeah.
I said, one is a psychotic and one is the psychopath. Um, but if I had to say which did I enjoy more, like regardless of which type of psychopath or psychosis, I enjoyed Heath Ledger's Joker more. He was more entertaining to watch, whereas Joaquin Phoenix, there was a disturbing component where you're kind of looking with your head turned. You still enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but Heath Ledger, you're watching face front moving forward, whereas the Joaquin Phoenix Joker, you're kind of looking from the side with your head turned. Both are entertaining, but I still give the nod to Heath Ledger.
Quickly before you get in, Gina, we'll just say hi to Joe Miller, who's watching. Says hello on the chat. So thanks for
Hey,
watching, Joe.
Joel. Nice to see you.
Okay, Gina. So is this the best Joker in your opinion
I
performance?
a lot of what I would have to agree with a lot of what Charles said. I give a notch to Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found Heath Ledger. First of all, Heath Ledger only had 15 minutes in his film, and he was still able to.
Really?
Yep, 15 minutes. They said so. Whereas Joaquin got the entire film, only with 15 minutes was he still able to dominate that film.
Wow.
At
Yeah.
least in my opinion. So I did prefer Heath Ledger because Heath Ledger was just more more in control. I would say he was, you know. The reason why I gave the Joker a 7.8, it was extremely well directed. Whatever, it was simply for the fact that the story or the origin, which we all know it's an origin, I found the origin. I was hoping for his origin to be a little bit more unique. Because the Joker is unique, the character of Joker is unique. There's nothing like him. There's always been imitators, but the character of Joker is very unique. So I was hoping that his origin story in terms of okay, we begin the film, and this is spoiler territory. We begin the film with him being, beaten up and by a bunch of kids. Then later on, he gets beaten up on the train. There were extremely well, directed scenes. And then, of course, he learns the secret about who his father is or who his father isn't, and it snaps at and is how he was abused as a kid, and then he snaps. I was hoping for something a more twisted origin that would really make him snap. I knew that there's going to be a snapping point and whatever. So I prefer Heath Ledger for sure. I think just the fact with Heath Ledger never told his origin story in his film. He gave us three little mini,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
There's
even
that
those three.
mystery.
Right. And even those three stories, which we don't know if they're true, which one is true, even I found those stories to be a lot more psychologically twisted
Mm-hmm.
than what we were given in this new Joker film. If you can remember some of the stories he was telling of how he got his scars, those stories were more twisted. And I was
Yeah.
just so that's the only reason why I gave it 7.8, and I did give a notch to Heath Ledger for sure.
Yeah. I recall like there was a couple moments from this movie that were I thought were really good, and one of them for me was just this scene here. He doesn't say anything. He's just got that dead look in his eyes. And I mean, this looks like a bad dude right here.
Yeah,
So there were moments for me that were really good, but I
yeah,
walked out of The Dark Knight being completely floored.
exactly.
I
Me too.
loved that movie, right?
Yeah,
This movie I walked out entertained,
yeah.
but I didn't get that same
I didn't either.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, so you get beaten up and you get trod upon, and then you just snap. We've seen it before. I was just hoping for a more original story with it, but not to take anything away. From the performance was excellent. I did like the story itself. So and the directing was really well done. So not to take anything away from it, and yeah, but
Yeah, good movie. Okay, so we'll move on to some more movie news here. We got Spider-Man. I believe last episode we discussed him leaving the MCU, which was a matter of weeks ago. He's already back, as we all kind of predicted. So a couple before we get to the question for this topic, there was a couple rumors that came out of this um, news. So there's Spider-Man, two thumbs up. He's back. First of all, is that I read recently that there are planning a crossover. Eventually, Venom and Tom Holland are going to meet. Did either of you see that?
I did read something about that. Yeah,
What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea?
I I mean, I think it's I think it's a good idea. I think it's sort of inevitable because Sony um, did make pretty good money on pretty good profit off the Venom, so it makes sense that they would combine these two.
Yeah, it seems like Venom 2 is setting up for kind of a maximum carnage
Maximum Carnage. Yeah,
because they could just cast Shriek, right?
yeah,
But I'd like to see if they're going to do that, Spider-Man should be there, right?
yeah.
But anyways, what I wanted to get to was the potential villains for the next Spider-Man movie. and there was a rumor that it was going to be Craven, Craven the Hunter, of course, and then the Scorpion, who was kind of already teased in the first one with this actor here. I don't know his name, to be honest with you.
The actor or the
Uh,
character?
the actor. Yeah, I know it's Matt Gargan, right?
All right.
But the actor, I don't know who the actor is. What do you think of that? Do you think those would be good villains to follow up Mysterio?
I think Scorpion will be fun. It'll be like, popcorn type of villain. It's not going to be a complicated thing. But the Craven the Hunter, it's that story. Where he basically he takes over Spider-Man's role for a while, and he knocks out what was it, for 6 weeks? Spider-Man's underground. I think that would have been a great story in and of itself. They don't have to give us 3-4 villains at the same time.
Exactly.
I don't know why they feel the need to do that. It's like as if they're saying we only have 3 movies with Tom Holland before he's too old to do any more films. So let's throw in as many villains as possible and get as many action figures out there as possible. And that's the one thing that's very challenging when we're watching superhero films is you can see storyline always being compromised by the merchandising aspect of it, and it's difficult to escape. Craven
Yeah,
should be his own film.
I kind of feel the same way. I mean, how many superhero movies with multiple villains have really been exceptional, right? There's a handful, right? I prefer to have just a single villain as well. And
Yeah.
Craven, I think if they wanted to go a darker storyline, Craven would be perfect. That'd be a really good movie, actually. He's got
Right, it would be. The thing is that with Craven, if they introduce him in this movie, that's okay because the thing is, why Craven took over the role of Spider-Man. I don't know how familiar you are with that story, Craven's Last Hunt.
Mhm.
I've read it. Yeah, it was years ago though.
So he becomes Spider-Man to prove that he's a better Spider-Man. So he would need to be in a movie where he's defeated, so that story makes sense.
Hmm.
So it could be very interesting. I guess we'll see. But in terms of multiple villains in the same film, this has been going on goodness knows how long. If you remember the second Batman film with Michael Keaton,
Yeah.
Penguin
Yeah.
and Catwoman. So we're going back to
Mhm.
what, 1990, 1992 or something. So this has been like the thing for a while. The one after that, Two-Face and Riddler, and the one after that, Poison Ivy and Bane, and Mr.
And Mr.
Freeze.
Freeze, yeah, they started adding a third villain into movies, right? That's when things really got bad for a while. So, anyways, Gina, what do you think? Those good villain choices, or
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone once it sort of the idea of Craven coming into the MCU and into the movie, once that sort of entered the entire internet mythos, it just took over, and then now I think everyone wants Craven, and even if it follows that famous storyline of Craven's Last Hunt, I think that's what everyone's. I think the movie would be perfectly fine with just that one character. I
Mhm.
can't think of a villain I want more than Craven. I think that'll be amazing. And even if they just have Craven and then perhaps bring back Mysterio, we don't need another brand new character. There's a lot more they can do with Mysterio. But Craven, I think, is number one. I would love to see Craven. I think that is a surefire $1 billion movie. I mean,
could be really good. So, sorry to go
especially
off
with the
topic
casting.
again here, but
Yeah,
if they bring Scorpion in, do you think they'll? Because they brought Jay Jonah in, they
yeah,
introduced him in the last movie. Do you think they'll do it the proper way? Like, because he was behind the whole Scorpion project, right? He
yeah.
kind of
I
created him in a way.
I doubt it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I all I care to be honest, all I care about is Craven. I think that right there is that's just surefire right there. You know.
Okay, so that leads kind of into the question that you put together for this topic. Should Spidey be the top superstar of the MCU? Do you think a Craven's Last Hunt movie could establish him as that?
Hmm. It's a tough call. But by the way, before going in, didn't we hear that Morbius was a possible next installment as well? I remember reading about
They
that.
were
Morbius was a
they're
It's going to be
filming
a
that
possibility.
movie.
standalone movie. Yeah,
They
it's a
are, yeah,
standalone movie.
they are making that Morbius movie with Jared Leto, I believe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's already been greenlit. So
See how
yeah,
that goes. But to answer your question, I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm to Tom Holland. I find he's too much of a kid.
A little bit.
It's very immature, and I don't know. I felt that I enjoyed Tobey Maguire more than I enjoyed Tom Holland. That's just me.
I
You know,
preferred, yeah, I prefer. I mean, I think the reason why I think this question is important is because when that whole kerfuffle was happening with Spider-Man officially leaving the MCU, I mean, everyone lost their mind, and then it became apparent, like and then everyone had an opinion. It became apparent how important he was to the MCU because everyone's like, well, what are they going to do now with him and his previous connection with Tony Stark? It became obvious. Wait a minute, like I mean, how can the storylines in Phase 4 go ahead without Spider-Man? So then it kind of brings up the question. I guess he was that important. I mean, when so should he really be that important? I mean, my personal feeling is without Disney owning that character for the MCU all out, he should never have been or held that sort of linchpin
It's a big
until they
risk,
finally
right?
buy him. It's too much of a risk, and they don't own him, and he never should have held
Yeah.
that linchpin and that key to the role.
Yeah. So quickly, Archangel 0407 is also watching with Joe. So hello to both you guys. Be sure to chime in with what you guys think on these topics. So Spidey plus MCU. I don't know what's the alternative, right? Uh,
Buying, I heard rumors that they might just buy
just
the
buy
rights
Sony.
back. Yeah, they no,
Um,
no, well, not by Sony, but just buy back the rights for Spider-Man and
what
just
I mean is if Spider-Man's not your lead, who is it? Is it Captain Marvel? I mean, she hasn't really got off on a solid footing.
correct,
Is it
correct.
Black Panther? I don't think he has the charisma to do it.
I,
Um,
I mean, I still I mean, I think he's still more important. He could be more important
could
than
be.
Spider-Man, but I mean, yeah, I think it's just a huge risk of them giving putting Spider-Man the center of their storylines, and without them actually owning him full
Yeah,
out. So,
I don't think they can. They can't make him like you're right. They can't make him the lead until they fully control it.
yeah.
'Cause
just a conversation we're having, it sounds like they didn't really think this through. Who was going to take over this next phase and
Mhm.
be as much a face. I don't know, like who's going to replace, like Captain America and Iron Man are pretty much major Avengers players. They didn't have to die, or they could have just been recast. They didn't have to die. They're an important part of the Avengers. They didn't have to get rid of them. You know,
Well, there's Falcon Cap coming up, right? That
there
doesn't.
there is, and
Yeah,
and
it's not the same. That's
nothing against one character becoming another character, because we've seen that, right? So, I still think that they need to rethink what they're going to do and see how they can bring back these major characters. Because Captain America and Iron Man, let's face it, are more interesting than Hawkeye and Falcon and Ant-Man. These are cool characters, but
they're not leads, right?
they're not leads. They're
So
not people
that's
who
what I
want
mean.
to
They don't
follow.
have a lot of options to take over. I mean, Iron Man, unless they find some way to bring him back, I don't see that happening. Cap, like you said, he's gone.
Captain Marvel had potential, but for one reason or another, the fan base kind of turned on Brie Larson,
Hmm.
and they had to like her, and they just, a lot of them didn't. They didn't mind her so much in front of the screen, but when she was being interviewed, and I don't know, she kind of rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, and Archangel and Joe here are making some good points. They got says he wants to see Black Panther maybe introduce Storm. I guess that's an option. I guess we have the
Yeah,
X Men and we have Fantastic Four. Those could be your next lead
yeah,
somehow if they introduce those. So maybe it doesn't have to be anybody
yeah,
currently in the MCU.
yeah.
The hope is that they handle the Fantastic Four really well. That's an amazing franchise. What I always thought, that the best way to introduce the Fantastic Four is to go back to 1961, back when they were the Fantastic Four in 1961, and somehow transport them to our time based on some Doctor Doom's plan, fish out of water type of thing. It would be very interesting because they have like this family type of TV orientation to them, right? Where you have the patriarch leader and you have the maternal uh, what you
Yeah,
call group
sister, yeah.
member, and you have the hot shot kid, and the cigar smoking, and they would come to this time and not really fit in, but at the same time we like their values.
Right.
We like who they are because they're good and they mean well and they care in a way that a lot of people today don't anymore, or they've become kind of darkened.
So I was thinking one way they can bring the Fantastic Four back is during the this entire time with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, maybe the entire family Fantastic Four were on a shuttle and they were out in space, and now they're coming back and going, "What the hell is happening here?"
That
So they
could
were out
work
in space.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they basically were on like a space mission, and then now they're coming back and going, "Wait, what? What's happening here?"
That's
And yeah,
that same space mission where they turned into the Fantastic Four,
and
or they already are the Fantastic
I don't
Four.
know. Well,
Well,
no, they're
who
not the
knows?
Fantastic Four. But they come back. So they've been gone all this time because they've been on a long mission in space. So I was just thinking maybe that might be interesting.
That could definitely be interesting. I can see that working also.
Yeah, and
Um,
that would be sort of a similar. That could be. You could almost combine both those storylines, right?
Mhm.
Space time doesn't work the same way, and they come back, and all of a sudden it's 60 years later or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that could work. But let's get on to the main topic of discussion here. That's, of course, New York Comic Con. All
mm.
three of us were actually there this time around. First time
Wow.
in the same room, which was pretty special. So, Gina, first, we'll start off with you. This was your first New York Comic Con. Charles and
Yeah.
I are vets. We've been there 2 times. Um, what'd you think? Did it live up to your expectation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, going into it, uh, I was expecting the crowds. I was expecting huge booths. This is where the money's at. These booths are going to be, these companies are going to put their money into this, put their money where the mouth is. And so I was expecting big booths, huge booths, and cool merchandise, and just crowds and crowds and crowds. I was expecting a really cool artist alley as well.
Mm.
So it met my expectations. Definitely bigger than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I knew it was going to be big. So yeah, I had a great time, and just meeting everybody too was really awesome. Meeting you guys and just meeting other YouTubers and just meeting everyone. It's just yeah, it was a really positive experience.
Okay, so speaking of booths, we spent a lot of time at the XM booth. So we're going to start off with kind of a just going to throw up some pictures of the various statues they had there. First one here, we got the Dark Side diorama. This was kind of a big reveal for them. I think this was the first time it's been shown.
I think you're
Uh,
right.
so at least in public, anyways. So get your thoughts on this guy. This was because this was sort of the centerpiece. This was right in the middle of their booth. I think this was their flagship piece this time around.
Hmm.
What'd you guys take away from this one? Start with Charles.
Hmm.
Um, well, you know, a piece like this I appreciate from afar without ever any intention of buying it. That doesn't mean it's not a nice piece, but it's one of those I'm never going to buy this. But it's a beautiful piece. It's nice to see that XM continues to take chances and wants to produce something big and magnificent. I liked it. The dark side is a larger dark side than I'm used to seeing. He kind of looks more like King Kong, but that is a dark side of a certain era. It's a very nice piece, but not something I would buy. And the other thing, just very quickly, um, when you do a piece like this, it's very challenging to have everybody do something interesting,
Yeah.
right? So you have Batman holding a parademon gun. I don't ever remember seeing him holding a parademon gun, and the Flash is just kind of running around, and it's like it's very challenging to put a piece together like this and have everybody do something interesting. It seems like the only two people who are really doing something are Wonder Woman with her lasso and Superman punching him. Everybody else is just kind of hoping to chip in somehow.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the Justice League, isn't it? They got the three, and then the rest is kind of sit around. Um,
Ooh.
Hey, those are fighting
uh,
words.
hey, I'm a big Green Lantern fan, but we all know that there's different levels within the team.
Right. And
I
that's a
thought
character you're seeing from behind, right? The Green
yeah,
Lantern, you're
yeah.
seeing it from behind.
I thought it was a nice piece too, but I realized I kind of ignored it. I only got one picture of the thing through the whole 3 days I was there. So I guess I liked it, but I didn't like it that much. So we'll move on to another one here.
Well, hold
This is a
on, Gina. Did you want to
oh,
say
Gina, do
something
you want
about
to chip
it?
in? Sorry.
Yeah, no, just really quickly. I enjoyed it. I thought it definitely was a crowd pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone that walked into that into the XM booth just gravitated towards it. It looks impressive in person. And I mean, I like to call it the DC Royal Rumble. Like it looks, it's so dynamic. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and of course, I think that one of my favorite comments I heard someone say about it, because we're all there with our cameras, so we get to sort of, as we're filming and taking photos, we're kind of listening to what people are saying. But one of my favorite comments was someone who said, "Oh, it says price says TBD," and then someone goes, "Yeah, that means to be discussed."
Mm.
Everyone's expecting that price to be pretty high, but it does look pretty
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah.
It will be high, and a lot of the complaints I saw about it was like what Charles kind of touched on. What's Batman doing? Why is he holding a gun? Um, just the general posing of some of the characters. But it's cool to get the original Justice League in there, with including Martian Manhunter,
Hmm.
who you don't see very often.
Imagine
Uh,
if Hawkman was there. That's the one that's missing, really.
was he on the original team?
He was there pretty early on.
Yeah, he's an oldie. Maybe you're right. Okay, here's one that you were a big fan of, Charles. The Iron Maiden Book of Souls tour. Eddie riding a dragon. You want to?
Yeah, this is based on the Book of Souls album. It's one of their albums. They have Eddie doing something different on every Iron Maiden cover, and this is the one based on Book of Souls. And as we know, it's sculpted by Marco Plouffe, friend of the show.
Right.
This is a very impressive design. It is a quarter scale and it is massive. So they started to paint it, so we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But if you know the album cover, you have a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. I thought it was very impressive. You see, you look at the subtleties, the way Eddie's kind of pulling on the mane of the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in there has a subtlety. Marco does not do anything by chance. Everything is considered and thought of. And, I have said this to him. It's incredible how this particular sculptor always somehow finds a way to extend the boundaries of his craft, of the craft in general, where he continuously sets the bar for others. Oh, we can do that. So very nicely done. I was very impressed.
Yeah, Joe says that piece was amazing. I'm assuming he's talking about this Eddie piece here. Um, yeah, it was impressive. I really like the dragon. I'll show the picture of that here one more time.
Yeah.
You get a nice close up of the face.
The dragon's
Um,
going to be red, I believe. It's going to
okay.
be a red dragon.
Okay. So for those interested, we did have an interview with Brian Tan from XM on this. It's up on the channel right now. And we do have a bunch more interviews coming with Brian. I think we hit on most of the new stuff that they had. So we'll have one of the Dark Side diorama, and we'll have kind of more
Right.
in depth. So right now we're just kind of flipping through what was there. So we had the Samurai Harley Quinn. Gina, I know you're a big Harley Quinn fan. Did
Hmm.
this one meet your expectations?
It did. In fact, when I first came to the XM booth, this was the first statue I went to, and I believe that the New York Comic Con was her first reveal.
Yep.
So yeah, this is the first statue I went to right away. I loved the scooter, and I loved her pose on that scooter. With that right leg up there, and all three portraits I really really liked. And then of course there's all these Easter eggs, surrounding and on top of the scooter. I personally I like the colors. They're really really vibrant in person. It
Yeah,
works
that
for
was
the
one of the biggest complaints was the color.
yeah, and I think
The
there's
color of the scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I see some understanding where people are coming from. I mean, putting that next to the Samurai Batman doesn't really go together. The
Hmm.
same way that maybe Bane obviously will go very well together with the Samurai Batman. Does this go together? So I do see some understanding. I do understand and I do appreciate those colors. But for me, I mean, with these colors and that bike being pink, if this was Poison Ivy, I'd say no. I'd say yeah, pink. But the fact that it's Harley Quinn and she's evolved into her color palette has evolved into these candy bright colors. It works for Harley Quinn. So
Right.
and I do really enjoy that like kimono. I love the colors on that kimono. Just really vibrant. I love the pattern. So I love the paint job. I love the sculpt, and she has this type of sassiness, in each of her portraits. So
So this one's sculpted by uh, I
Martin.
don't, is it Martin? Or I thought it
I
was
believe
Harry.
so. Is it? Oh no, it's Harry and Martin. Sorry, it's both
Okay,
of
the
them.
two of them together. So
Right.
pick a favorite of the three
I
heads.
I made a mistake when I posted pictures of it. I wrote that it was Martin, and Martin came. Okay, I only worked on it partially, but Harry did the bulk of it. Sorry, go ahead.
So pick of the three heads, which one's your favorite?
I like the geisha one, but I have to echo the sentiments that Gina said. I also really like this piece, and I'm wondering why is it that Gina and I really like this piece, and other people seem to be either lukewarm or just flat out saying no. I wonder what's wrong with them.
With them? Or yeah, I don't.
well, I mean,
What's
I
wrong
think
with these people? Yeah.
What's
um,
wrong with these people?
I think I think if people collect or people in their collection, if they have the other Samurai Batman statues, I can see what they're saying about the colors, right? I found that non-collectors, I just listening to comments, they seem to love that statue, so they just walk up right up to it. They knew it was Harlequin,
Hmm.
and even though she was wearing, and by the way, my favorite portrait is the helmet portrait. So even with the geisha portraits, whatever, everyone knew it was Harlequin.
Yeah, there's no
And
mistaking, right?
I think part of that has to do with the colors. I really do.
Hmm.
Um, y- y-
You
Yeah,
know
I
what's
know.
interesting? Hold on, just one last
Sorry.
thing. One of the reasons why I like those colors because you could only use those colors with her.
yep.
You can't
Yeah.
put those colors on Batman or even Poison
Even
Ivy
Poison
or
Ivy, you can't. Or
Catwoman.
Catwoman. Yeah.
She gets those colors. She has been, the lipstick villain for the longest time. I mean, she uses Yiddish on a regular basis. She's always been flamboyant with her colors, with her expression, with everything she does has been, a plus one. So I think people were just looking, or maybe some people were just hoping to see something sexy. And if it isn't that, well, let's just reject the whole thing. So I thought this
Yeah.
really
I
worked.
know I had a friend that was really excited about it, and for him it really fell flat. I'm not sure. I think it was partially the colors, but I'll have to ask him what he didn't like specifically. I thought it was okay, but I didn't have huge expectations for it going in. It wasn't something I was particularly excited about. This Harley Quinn, I was looking forward to seeing. I really liked it. Thought they did a nice job with that. I would definitely recommend getting the two hyenas. It is an option to buy it without, but I can't imagine the piece without them. It looks good. They had the Flash there again. This time it was complete. Remember last year it didn't have the little control panel thing on
Mm.
the treadmill. Another new one, Lobo. I thought this statue was really impressive, quite large, and every time I walked by it, it seemed like there was a different configuration. I
For
kept having to
dog.
go, yeah, I kept having to go
Yeah.
back and take pictures. It's really pissing me off actually because I put my camera away and then I have to go back and get a new one with Lobo.
Yeah,
Um,
dog goes on the front of the bike. He also goes there's a pose where Lobo's holding him upwards. Yeah, he's and then of
Right
course the two
hand.
portraits. Yeah.
yeah, so then he can go in the front like this. There's an open mouth for the dog. I mean, the dog is almost more interesting than Lobo in that piece. And Lobo doesn't look bad. He looks good, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so this is a statue here that I went in.
Well, hold on, just one sec about the Lobo.
Sure,
That one is sculpted by Alvaro Ribeiro, as you know,
that's right.
and it seems like this sculptor cannot sculpt something simple. How many pieces did they say this comes together in? I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much to this piece, and there are several portraits and different configurations. There's a gun hand port switch out. There's the grappling hook. It's just incredible. So it seems to be worth the amount that they're asking, especially since it's 6 scale, which caused some controversy at first.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's a good point. A lot of people see 1/6 scale, well, and then immediately think, okay, it should be less than $400 or something, whatever is in their head. This is not your typical 1/6 scale statue for sure.
Definitely not.
It's very complex. It's got a very complicated paint scheme, different switch outs. It's pretty cool. I
You
think
know, you bring up a very, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. You bring up a very
it's good.
important point about 6 scale. I think some people, went to quarter scale for the longest time. And now some people are starting to, take their steps backwards and go back to 6 scale because a quarter scale are starting to hit the 1K mark on a regular basis. So they're thinking of going back to 6 scale because it's more affordable. And it's like they're going back thinking, well, everything else has gone up in price with the exception of 6 scale. They're still at the same price that Bowen sold them at, 20 years ago. It's not 20 years ago. It's not 2001, 2002 when Bowen was releasing this stuff with not even the 20% of the detail that you see now. So I think people have to be realistic when it comes to their price expectations.
Yeah. So here's another one that's on the more complicated side of things. Green Lantern. As I mentioned, this is a statue that I went there wanting to see in particular. I'm a big Green Lantern fan, so um, I have to admit, in the pictures of the cons leading up to this one, I think it debuted in Sweden or something like that. The pictures weren't good. It didn't look. I didn't like it.
That's because we weren't there to take pictures.
Well, that's a good point. And but it was a construct. Typically, that's clear, right? So, and they went with a translucent material. It does pick up some light when you see it in person. And I was pleased. I thought it looked really nice and vibrant in person, and I was happy with this one. So, um, I guess some pictures can be deceiving sometimes. So I was happy with Green Lantern. They had a couple of Royal Selangor pieces there, the pewter Iron Man and
This was
Batman.
this was interesting because these are limited to 300. They're available now, but they're full metal. Like I was picking them up thinking it was going to be lighter, maybe, but it's full metal. It almost feels like a bronze statue. I
Yeah,
think whoever is going to end up buying this are going to be very, very pleasantly surprised. I think it's in the 1K range, though. It's not
yeah,
cheap.
they're not cheap. You
Yeah.
pay for that, but yeah, they are I think fully pewter piece, and we've talked with Mufazal a little bit about these early on in the show, because he sculpts these and just how he goes about getting the different colors and things on these statues when it's basically unpainted. So if people want to go back to that interview, it's way back, one of the first episodes. Wonder Woman was there, so I believe this was a production sample. I asked some of the XM team, and they did say that it was. Gina, I know you have this one on order. Were you happy with what you saw?
I was so happy. Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite Wonder Woman pieces produced, like regardless of the scale. I loved
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
this one by Martin Augusta, who's been on the show. Um, I really like this one too. I'll be honest, I have it on order as well. So you like the helmet portrait better, I
I
believe I saw
do.
you
I was
said that.
surprised that you did not, that you prefer the sort of the unhelmeted portrait. Um,
Well, I got to see the hair flowing.
the hair is
Going through.
great.
I
Yeah, I
guess it
think
is
that.
flowing out of the back of the helmet there too. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're both really good. I think it's a really nice Wonder Woman. Another brand new reveal from the Samurai line was Robin.
This was
Uh,
so nice.
Hmm.
I really liked it. It comes with three different portraits and a bunch of different types of display options. This was another pleasant surprise that people were gravitating towards. When we were there, we were there covering the event, and we go back to our hotels, and we're going to post some pictures. Obviously, not the gamut of the pictures, but out of all the pictures I posted, that's the one that got the most responses at first, positive ones anyway.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, because I mean, people do like to complain. That's for sure. I like the colors on it. I'm not a big Robin fan. I think we've talked about that before. He's just not a character that I love. But this statue is really nice. I like the green and red coloring that they gave him, and the blue. Sorry, the yellow on the inside of his cape. It was a nice looking piece. A couple more new ones here. We got. Give me one sec. We got a new 1/6 scale dark side, and people can't see I'm doing the air quotes here. That 1/6 scale. It's a pretty big dark side.
it
Um,
it displays like a quarter scale
It does.
actually.
It does.
So if people want a quarter scale dark side that looks reminiscent to the dark side that was in the 80s, then you'll be
Yeah.
happy with it.
I
Yeah.
personally, I think that's the best dark side statue ever produced.
it's really good.
I'm not a dark side fan. I'm not, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun just looking at that statue, even as a non-fan. I was like, wow, that is it, it's just the paint. Just you could look on that in that photo. I think it does a pretty good job. It does a really good job of showing that the paint on the armor. It's like this pearl blue. I thought
Mhm.
that was really interesting decision paint design on that. I mean, they could have just gone for full metallic, but they didn't. It's like this pearl blue on his armor. It looks really cool, and then the veins too just comes out really nicely on him.
Yeah. Tweeterhead's got a dark
Oh,
side in the
ho-
works.
can you go
Classic one.
back to the are we seeing the Bloodstorm still?
It's there. Yeah. It's there. Yep.
Okay, so I want to make a note about that after we talk about the dark side.
Okay. You can go ahead right now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
You know, the Bloodstorm, the Vampire Batman. What's interesting about this is sculpted by Tim Bruckner. I don't know how many people out there are familiar with him, but this is a veteran in the field. He was doing sculpts for DC 20 years ago. I don't know how they managed to get him to come on board. This is a traditional sculpt. This is one of those where it's done by hand. There aren't many people who do sculpts like that anymore. So it was really refreshing to see this guy back doing what I imagine he loves doing the most. So kudos to Tim Bruckner for coming back.
Yeah, so that was part of the Batman cover series. They got the Hush Batman as well. I thought was okay. I would like a lighter blue, but it's all right. That one's done by Martin.
What do you
Um,
think of this Batman? Just for a moment, go around the horn.
Gina, you go ahead.
I mean I liked it. I know that they're making this was not a production piece, so they're still making revisions to this. So I think Brian was mentioned that the seams won't be as obvious. I mean I liked
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah.
I wanted to like it because I'm gonna be collecting the DC as 1/6, so I want a Batman. I wanted this to be the Batman. I'm not sure that it is. There's little things I don't like about it. His pose, he looks a little bit too bulky, maybe too stocky, and I
Yes.
don't like the blue. I wish it was a lighter blue, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe like Gina said, it's still early, so maybe they'll make some changes to it.
I don't know how many changes they can make to the actual sculpt. I mean, paint is always something you can work on,
Yeah,
but he looks too stocky. He looks like it's a troll in there. It looks like a short man. Um, I don't know. I wanted to love it also, and I like it, but
yeah.
I don't love it. I don't
So
love this one.
they're doing one. I believe it's a 1970s cover, a third and final in that series that will come out soon. And then there's the Rebirth Batman coming soon. So hopefully one of those two can be my Batman. Shazam was a new one. Has a light up feature there. A couple different heads. Deathstroke had some options there. And someone knocked it off the table, so they had to get creative there and glue the hands back on. Um, and I just here's another closer look at the dark side, which I agree. This is really nice. I think I mentioned earlier, Tweeterhead's got one. It's a little more of a classic take, so we haven't seen that one painted. But this, I think Gina might be right. That might be the best dark side to date. So I think that's pretty much it for the XM booth. As I mentioned, we will have interviews with Brian coming up on the channel, so stay tuned for those, where we go around basically talk about everything. Um, just hang on a sec here. Someone had a comment. Archangel says Shazam was my
Shazam.
favorite at the con.
Yeah, I agree,
So
Art, with Archangel. That statue really surprised me in a positive way. I was wow. I was, portrait, the pose. There's nothing I did not like about that statue. The
yeah,
base, it had all these engravings on the base.
yeah, the base is
Um,
cool, the Egyptian
mhm.
theme,
Yeah,
and
I mean, usually you can be, objective and point. No statue is perfect. You could be objective, but I'm telling you, that statue, I don't know what you can really improve on. I love the portraits. I love the hooded portrait a little bit more, and that light up feature. I think they're using an LED light on that, but it's really, I don't know the best word to use. It's a very gentle light. Like it has a nice glow to it.
mhm.
So.
So that one was done by another friend of the show, Victor Hugo Sousa,
Mm.
who's been on the
Nice
show
work.
previously. So congrats to him. So let's move on to Sideshow Collectibles. They're also there. And remember last year they made a big splash. They had Punisher, Spider-Man, Venom, Bust were all there. They had a bunch of new debuts. This year, they took a little bit of a different tactic and they just brought one new statue, and that was Cyclops. So I guess quickly let's touch on this one. We all had a good look at this one. What did you think of the Cyclops premium format?
Who are you asking?
Uh, Charles, you go ahead and start.
Um, uh,
That pretty much sums it
you
up.
know,
Gina,
I
what do you think?
mean, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you see this one. How far was it from Rogue? Rogue was breathtaking, right? It's a
Yeah.
beautiful piece, and then you see this, and I mean, it's not that it's bad. It's just you can't have sculpts that are so inconsistent in terms of impressiveness. You know, being alongside one another. I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I could see the effort. There's some good to it, but it wouldn't get my money. No.
So Gina, how'd you feel about Cyclops?
I mean, I think it's a good rendition of a classic Jim Lee, version of Cyclops. I think it hits all the notes on that aspect. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have an amazing super wow factor, as Charles was saying. But I think it hits all the notes if you wanted the classic um, Cyclops.
Yeah, and I thought it was okay, but somebody pointed out, I think on a photo of it that I posted, that it looks like he's crying underneath the visor, and I can't unsee it now. It looks like he's crying, and I'm just there is another head, so maybe that one looks better.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, Charles, you touched on something that I wanted to mention about this. You got the premium format line of X-Men, then you got the maquette line of X-Men, and there's a pretty distinct difference there. I mean, there's a difference in price as well. You pay for extra for those maquettes, but they're just, in my opinion, clearly just better. Rogue,
Yeah.
Gambit, Magneto, Juggernaut, those are fantastic statues, and then the premium formats are good, but they're not the same level.
Not as consistently. I mean, like the Electra premium format, as we know, was stunning. But this Cyclops, I mean, it's not that it's bad. It's okay. I mean, that's the general consensus here. It's okay. It's not bad.
Yep.
But at what is it, $700?
Did they have
You
the
know,
price? I don't think they have the price up yet, do they?
it's up for pre-order now, but
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
I don't know what the price. I would expect it's in that range,
No
600 bucks
way.
somewhere in there.
700? Really?
Hang on, I can
Well,
look it
with
up right
going
now.
into
You
add
guys
shipping
discuss. I'll
and
look it up.
whatever.
They're gonna have a low ES on that. They're gonna have a low ES on that. So here's one possible theory from someone that I don't know. I'm just guessing here. But some of the perhaps Cyclops was designed and sort of made before they had that entire X-Men embargo, and then they
Oh,
couldn't
was
make
it?
any X-Men. And then, so this is pretty. What I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is an old sculpt, perhaps,
Could be.
and that's
Could
why
be.
this. The same thing with maybe Emma Frost as well, or even with Jean Grey. These are just an older sculpt, and instead of starting from scratch, they're just, and that it may be why it's not, because it seems like something that they would have put out 4 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago, and then it would have. So in this day and age now, with better better engineering and this and that, and um, statues now, especially all these like maquettes, they tend to have a bit more wow factor. This may have been I'm using this word not as in any detrimental way, but maybe this was an outdated, just a previous design that they just couldn't get done because they had that embargo, that X-Men embargo, and then now they're just using an older design. This design was 5 years ago. I'm just
Yeah,
I
could
don't
be.
know anything. I could be completely wrong. I mean, they could have just made this design. They could have designed this and put this together like a year
So
ago. I don't know.
it's priced at 782 Canadian.
Wow,
My Sideshow browser shows up the Canadian price automatically. So what's that, like 650 ish,
6, yeah,
somewhere in
maybe.
there?
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
so
Okay.
you
But that's
mentioned
the three
you
heads. Okay.
yeah, you mentioned one here, Jean Grey.
Hmm.
This one again, this looks a lot like it's like a mirror image of that old Bowen one.
Right. The
Um,
pose.
the pose, it's very simple, but I love this portrait. I think that
It's beautiful.
that face looks fantastic. I think it's done by Tim Miller. This one. So I quite liked that one, even though it's on the simpler side.
Yeah.
Here's one of the maquettes that we mentioned, Gambit. Gina, I know you were a big fan of this piece, and I think
Hmm.
you ordered it already, right?
Uh-huh.
So seeing it in
Yes.
person, did it live up to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have seen your pics from the San Diego Comic Con when it was first, and other people's photographs. So, and based on those photographs, and based on your photos too, I had high expectations. It was exactly, yeah, what I had expected. Um,
It's really
but
good, and
yeah,
this is William Harbottle. He's done. He did Rogue. He did Magneto. He did Elektra. He did Juggernaut.
he did the
I mean,
Martian
what?
Princess, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Red
Deja
Sonia, I
Martian
think, too.
Yeah. Um, what can't that guy do? I mean, everything he touches seems to be amazing, in
yeah.
my opinion. Um, I mean, this one just looked amazing. So other than that, I mean, there wasn't a lot there at the sideshow booth. Um, and Charles, you mentioned that's kind of one of the stories to take away from this con.
Well, two stories. One, there wasn't a lot of new stuff. And, speaking to the fellow who was running the booth, it sounded like Sideshow is going to be investing more time and energy on smaller scale pieces. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, well, they didn't. Well, I guess they had one smaller scale, the Nun. I don't have a picture of that available at the moment, but they had a lot of Hot Toys there. This one I think was
Yeah.
new, the Mandalorian. Should be popular with the Hot Toys crowd. And they had some alien stuff there. But there was a lot of older stuff too, like a Freddy Krueger from several years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. All this to say is that it didn't look like they were out to impress or get new clients. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like trying to get new clients, people coming over and saying, wow, I've never seen this before. This is amazing. It didn't present like that this time around. Remember last year, there was so much new stuff. There
yeah,
was so much impressive stuff
and
too. And this time
I don't think
around,
anyone's expecting this to be on the level of San Diego. That's their flagship event. But like you
Mhm,
said, last year they had three or four new ones that were really exciting.
mhm.
This year it was kind of fell flat. So
Um, yeah, Archangel was mentioning in the comments that he thinks that maybe Cyclops was rushed, sort of to compete with the XM one, which is a very
could be.
viable theory. Absolutely, it could have been.
So speaking of the XM Cyclops, if you guys pick between the two, XM or Sideshow, which one would you pick?
in terms of the Cyclops
Yeah,
or the
Cyclops.
Gambit,
Cyclops.
this I thought the XM Cyclops looks much better.
Yeah, same.
I agree.
Okay, so since you brought it up, Gambit. What about because they both are coming out with Gambits? Which one did you pick there?
That one is a tougher. Oh boy, I'm not sure. I'd have to think about it because I like the portrait on the Sideshow more than I like the portrait on the XM.
Yeah.
But I think I like the pose on the XM a little bit more than I like on the um, Sideshow. But it's really close. Ask me tomorrow. I might say something different.
See, that's exactly how I feel about it too. I think the portrait, the toothpick portrait on the Sideshow one, that's excellent. That's the better of the two in my opinion. But I do like the pose of the XM one better. I think it seems odd to say this, but I think it's going to take up less space than the Sideshow one.
Oh, for sure. The sideshow one is huge.
It's big and he's
Huge.
stretching out. You got the
Yeah.
cards and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
For
But
sure.
it's
it'll
a,
display
that's
well with the Rogue, though.
yes, it will.
Oh yeah.
So
So
kind
that's
of
a
makes
tough call.
sense there.
Tough call for me. I think
So,
yeah, I'd probably give well I have the XM1 on order, so I'll give it the edge to that one. Simply for that reason.
I
But toss up,
yeah,
toss up.
I think they're both great. I think both the sideshow and the XM game is great. I have a sort of a nudge. I would give a nudge towards the sideshow one. I just prefer that portrait, and I
Yeah.
also prefer that pose. I think it's pretty cool, but they're both great. So
Yeah, tough call. Okay, so another booth just kind of off to the side from Sideshow was Pop Culture Shock, or I think they might have dropped that name. It's just PCS now, PCS Collectibles, and they had some new stuff, so it was interesting. Um, I had a chance to chat with the fellow there. His name was Josh. Does some of their concept designs. And speaking about Ninja Turtles, this first of all, Megatron is a brand new one of their animated Transformers line. Now you're a fan of this show, right, Gina?
I watched the
Transformers?
original. What Transformers?
Yeah,
Yes, I
Transformers.
watched the original when it first aired. So not to date myself.
too
Huge.
late.
So, so what do you think of this animated style?
I love it. So it's my first time seeing. I think do they call it shell shading? I believe. I think it's
Cell shading, yeah.
yeah. It's my first time seeing it in person. It looks pretty cool. Like yeah, it brings back fond memories. I think it nails it. They nail that animated look for sure.
So Akram one says hi Gina specifically, not he's kind of ignoring the other two of us here. Uh,
Hello.
that, that's my friend Marco just giving us the gears, I think.
He's giving you guys a
Uh,
hard time.
yeah. Um, oh yeah, I like this one. I think this is the best of their Transformer line. I've seen most of them. There was a few there last year. I like this Megatron the best. Ninja Turtles looked a lot better than I thought they would. This is a cartoon that I grew up with, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um, and again, chatting with him, a Shredder, I think the design concept is done, but they haven't got much further than that. But they do plan to expand on past the Turtles into some of the villains, which is kind of cool. Um, we got from the wrestling line, The Rock. Again, this I couldn't stop staring at the statue. I just love it. I think it looks so much like him. They're working on updating the alternate torso, the old school Attitude Era torso with the people's eyebrow. They had the eyebrow on the wrong eye, the raised
What?
one.
Oh
Yeah, well
no.
they had it on his left eye at San Diego. It's supposed to be his right, so they're fixing that. But should be up for pre-order soon. They mentioned that Undertaker is probably going to be the next one. Um, they've heard all the requests for Macho Man, so he's probably going to be in the works. And Stone Cold Steve Austin seems like a no-brainer as well. They said so.
So are you getting any of these?
Oh yeah, I've got the Ultimate Warrior. Remember he was there last year, um, and I'll get this one when it comes up. And then if they do a Stone Cold, I would get that. I would get a Shawn Michaels. Um,
You would buy all those.
I would, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Wrestling was a big part of my youth and through all the way up and through university even.
Because
So,
it's so interesting. So many of the wrestlers were there, and
wow, but yeah,
didn't
not
seem
the
like
guys
you
that I
were.
really followed though, right? Who was there? Razor Ramon, Mankind.
Nash was there.
Yeah, those were guys that I didn't. They
Kevin
were more
Nash,
WCW guys. Um,
Gangrel,
yeah,
Kane was there.
yeah, they
Uh,
just didn't quite have the guys that I liked the most. So
and
Kane is Kane the Undertaker's brother?
brother, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
something like
Is
that. And there were
she?
also Sergeant Slaughter. I'm just remembering because every time I walked by, it seemed like another one was giving autographs. So they must have had some kind of
They must,
rotation
yeah,
going
they must
on.
have been in town or something. What was I going to say? Oh, quickly mention all of those are sculpted by the same guy so far. His name's Hossein Diba, and if you have a chance, look this guy up on Instagram. Some of his sculpts are just, I think he does some of the most accurate likenesses I've ever seen. He did a
Wow.
whole bunch of Joaquin Phoenix renders. He sculpted the Joker. and amazing stuff. So
Um,
he does some really nice work. Another one that caught a lot of people's attention there was Spider-Man. Just went up for pre-order now. I think it's priced at 1100 US. So that's just the age that we live in, I think. But this one, I think, was the talk of their booth. A lot of people were interested in it. Um,
What's your
yeah.
thought when you see this costume? What's your first thought?
Well, it's based on the video game, right? So it for me, this kind of falls into that almost like movie statue territory, and I don't get really buy into those personally. I can appreciate them; it looks good, but I mean, if I'm going to buy a Spider-Man, it's got to be a comic book Spider-Man. I'm not going to buy a movie or a video
Yeah.
game one. But
My
it looks
first
nice.
thought, yeah, my first thought looking at that costume is that doesn't look like a costume a 16-year-old put together, sewed together. It looks like pretty high tech, yeah, $5,000 costume. That I,
Yeah,
I just didn't think a kid could put that together.
in the game, he is an older Peter Parker. He's well into his Spider-Man career, so I guess it's possible. I forget the story of how he gets it. Um,
It's all right.
yeah, so there's a story behind it, anyways. To put a long story short. So, anyways, PCS, I thought decent showing. A lot of people talking about their stuff. So more to come from the wrestling, more to come from Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man up for pre-order. So there was on top of that, there was a couple other statue companies there, so we'll hit on those real quick. One of them was Queen Studios. They're a Chinese-based company. This was their first time in North America.
Hey, I
Uh,
didn't see that one. That Joker.
oh yeah, well they were hard to see because their table was really low down. You might have walked right past it.
Ah,
Um, so they had three of those cartoon series. They had the Batman, Joker, and Bane, which was a new one, brand new reveal. I was chatting with a guy named Johnny Arthur from Queen Studios, and he mentioned to me that this was very last minute for them. They didn't think they were going to get a table, and it was like basically like the week before, and that they found out, and they had already committed a lot of their stuff elsewhere. So we got to see those cartoon series. They had this Joker there, the Heath Ledger. Um, this is, I believe, is 1/3 scale, mixed media. It's got mixed media hair as well. It's not done yet, so I know people were complaining about the hair and whatnot. It's not done, but I thought the likeness was exceptional.
it
And
looks good.
and I asked him about that specifically, like how do they get scans like of the actors or resources from the studios? And he said no, their artists start from scratch and basically did that, right from square one. So, and same goes for this one here, the Terminator, um, which
About the Terminator, I see where you're going. I don't know why, but every time I see an Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, the likeness is off. But this one, they seem to got it. They got it close.
it's pretty
So it's
good.
not.
I
It's
have to
not
pretty
say,
good.
it's
bad at
pretty
Yeah.
all.
good.
Yeah.
One thing to note about this, I asked specifically, is it is the face is silicone, right? And one thing I found looking at the Infinity booth in San Diego was the hair really and dust would stick to the face. The silicone's sticky. So I asked them like, how do you
Get
get
rid of
around
it.
that?
Yeah.
And they are going to send some kind of special brushes and things to help clean the stuff. But basically, he said you're going to have the best way put it behind glass or under some kind of case or something. So I thought that's interesting. These silicone statues are going to start making their way into people's hands soon, and I'm interested to see how they hold up long term.
Before you go to the next one, the Heath Ledger Joker that you were just talking about, it reminded me we didn't spend much time talking about the sideshow Heath Ledger Joker, which looked pretty good. One where he's kind of like
Yeah, the
the
clapping one.
the bars, and you could move them in front of him or move them behind him,
Yeah.
which is a nice display option that I haven't seen before. That one was really nice. It was one of the more impressive pieces I saw at the sideshow table. I just wanted to bring it up because we didn't discuss it earlier.
Yeah, I did throw up a picture of it earlier. Gina had
Um,
a good picture of it. I like the portrait on this one better. The rest of the statue, the sideshow one might be better because, like you said, the display options and things, and it's got
Mm,
different hand. It can be having clapping or like this with his hands down.
right.
But I thought this portrait was really good. So lastly, um, a company from your neck of the woods, Charles, we have Pure Arts.
Right.
They showed off. This is the third in their Assassin's Creed line. Um, so they had the first one was called Altair. Second one I saw in San Diego was called Bayek. It was kind of an Egyptian theme. And then this is the third one. This is the one that I think most people wanted the most. Ezio. So, do you want to say a few words about that one? I think you had a chat with Arnaud.
Well, two things. One, I was surprised at the price. What was it, like seven something? But it's a massive piece. It displays like a third scale piece.
It's big.
And it's big and it's really beautiful. And you've got different textures to it. You see, kind of towards the end, it just kind of withers into this purple hue, this purple kind of substance.
Yeah.
And with lighting, it actually looks very impressive. One thing that's impressive also about Pure Arts is that they somehow found a way to produce their own product. And because of that, their pieces are less expensive than what you would expect to pay for something of a similar design from the other companies. So it's going to be very interesting to see what these guys are going to be doing in the future, especially if they're going to be producing stuff like this. I had asked them like who was the sculptor, and they said this is all a team effort. It isn't one person. We don't name one person. The whole team kind of works together, and kudos to them because it's very difficult to be noticed in this industry right now, and they managed to do it with just a couple pieces already.
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned they have their own factory. Now, I believe that they've been around a long time manufacturing for people. And just now, I think they're just starting to get their own licenses and make their own stuff.
Yeah, they
So
have a lot of plans. It's all hush hush, but apparently they have a lot of plans. So it's a company to keep an eye on, is what I would think.
I think so. Gina, did you get a look at this one?
I did. I did. I liked it a lot. Yeah,
So,
I liked it a lot.
did you ever play the Assassin's Creed games?
No, no, but it seems pretty fun. But
Yeah,
no,
I'll be
I
honest.
did. Yeah,
I've never played them either.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know how I missed those ones. I played a lot of games over the years, but not those ones. Um, but I
So
thought,
actually, sorry,
go
Archangel
ahead.
was just mentioning in the comments. How do we feel about Rio just here on statues?
Uh, I don't like it. But on a life-size bust, I think sculpted hair might not look great. Um,
Over time.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what. I don't think I would have a statue with real hair. It'd be weird.
I think we'll just have to wait and see. You know, the Wonder Woman from what's the name of the company again?
Infinity, yeah.
Right?
But
It's was
well, Queen has
gorgeous,
one
right?
too. Yeah, Queen has one with her arms crossed,
Right, that
and
one, the life
that's Queen.
size one.
Yep.
Um, I think they sold out, and we're going to see how it passes the test of time. You know, a lot of people are watching to see if this is going to still look good after a year. You
Yeah.
know, and if it doesn't, you know,
Yeah. So I'm basically in the same boat as you guys. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of that type of hair on statues, but seeing the Arnold bust, the Queen Studio booth, that hair looked amazing in person. It looked real. It
Hmm.
was styled perfectly. So I mean, that kind of made me a believer. Like, wow, okay. I mean, I don't normally like hair, but this was done really well. And
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely look good. It's not that I don't think it looks bad. I just don't think I would want it.
hmm,
You have to maintain it, right?
right.
You get dusty, or you'd have to. I'm interested to see how it comes looking out of the box, right?
yeah,
Do you have to style it? Are you going to have to break out a curling iron or something, or what do you have to do here?
I can't see it not requiring some kind of primping because it's sitting in a box for so long. It's not going to come out, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's I mean if it's synthetic, I'm assuming it's no different than a wig, and the the purpose of a wig, it maintains, uh,
Does it?
it's
Yeah.
more stable, yeah, than I mean regular hair. It has oil and things like that, so it changes and whatever. But a wig would just, if it's synthetic hair, what you see one week is what you'll see the next week. So I'm assuming it's be easy to manage. I don't know, but
Well, I guess I have to
Yeah,
just wait and see.
yeah.
The people
Marco.
who bought it, you know.
Yeah, Marco mentioned a Chewy bus that just came out. Now I don't know if you guys have seen
I
this
saw
thing.
that. Yes.
This was not at New York Comic Con, but we'll mention it anyways. Did you see that one floating around, Charles?
Um,
It was a
Pictures of
life-size
it on
Chewbacca bust.
and
It looked incredible. It looked like it had
just
like
like
real
him.
hair and stuff. So that ties into the topic at hand, I guess, a little bit with the real hair. This is all hair. Um,
Well, maybe that's different because it's all hair,
yeah,
and it does. It could look disheveled. You know,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not really into life size busts all that much. And
yeah.
I had
That,
one, and it was such a space hog that I didn't keep it.
yeah, I have one. I'll give you a guess who it is.
You have the Spidey?
No,
No.
Daredevil.
Daredevil, of
Daredevil.
course.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
So
right.
I got the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was by a the Chewy's by a company called Regal Robot, and I'm trying to find out if it's a licensed piece or not. I don't know. And I asked them, and they kind of danced around the question and said email us, and I don't know. So we'll see if it's a
Marco
contender for Bust of the Year or not.
Marco says that it comes with a pick to comb the Chewy's hair.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
um,
So
yeah, I just have one bus, one life size bus. I have in my, and
really, what is it?
that's the Spider Man, and that's
The
it.
sideshow one?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah,
So
the,
which one did you get? Because isn't there like one with silver
the
eyes, one
silver
with
eyes.
white?
I have the regular eyes, the white eyes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Which one did you have, Charles? Batman?
I had the Darth Vader.
Oh,
Where you
okay.
could kind of like display the helmet. I got it signed by David Prowse too.
Didn't you have the
The
Batman?
base. Oh, I had the Batman one also. Oh, you're right. I had two.
Okay, yeah,
I had two, and I sold them both.
yeah,
Because it didn't fit with my collection, and my philosophy, right, with collecting,
yeah,
that I'm not allowed to spend any kind of money. Anytime I buy something, something's got to go out. Something comes in, something goes out. So my collection is always stable. Which leads to this other thing that I wanted to talk about that happened at the New York Comic Con. So in Artist Alley, I run into this artist, and he has this beautiful Justice League cover, and I wanted it, but there's kind of like a no. It's taboo to ask for an artist to hold on to something when you're not ready to pay for it, because you got to give him the option to sell it to somebody else. So I have to raise over a substantial amount of money because, like I said before, I don't spend any money out of pocket. It's always selling other collectibles. And I managed to do it in a day. And it was gone. So
yeah,
that really sucks.
Oh,
But I managed to get other stuff at the convention. So I networked with a couple other artists who are up and coming, like Ben Oliver. Well, someone who was working for Ben Oliver. And so, the Artist Alley, just very briefly, is the most impressive Artist Alley in any con I have ever seen. Just about everyone was there. You could stroll around for days and run into someone you didn't see earlier. It was so much artwork. It was very impressive.
I think that's the highlight of the convention. To be honest, the whole New York Comic Con, I think that's the best part about it. I
that
think
was your
that's
favorite part, Chris?
well, my favorite part. Yeah, I just walked, just browsing around. But I think if there's something that New York has that the other ones don't, it's that they have everybody's there, right?
Yeah. Well, Toronto has a pretty good one too.
Pretty good one. But it
Uh,
changes. The roster changes, so they typically have like three or four pretty good people, and then but the roster was changing. Where it seems to me, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be that New York is really stable. Like they have the same top tier artists every year. They'll get
Hmm.
them. But was Artist Alley your favorite part, Charles, of this year?
Largely, yes, because I like to. I don't want to say become friends with them. I mean, I use that term loosely, um, but I try to set up ways where I could know when they're doing new stuff, so maybe I could be among the first to get a crack at it. And that's how it happened. I ended up, well, I don't want to spoil it because it's got to be in my hands, right, before I say anything.
Hmm.
But I ended up finding a way to be the first one to get a crack at a Poison Ivy cover. I'll just say it like that. And it wouldn't have happened unless I was there. And other artists who were there, you were hanging out with me, Chris, when we were going down, and I'm next in line to get one of his Batman covers. So, that's what's great about Artist Alley and Brian Stelfreeze. Does that say anything to you guys?
Um,
He's another great artist who's been around for a while. And I gave him a picture of Selena X-23. I don't know if you guys have seen those pictures. I sent you pictures of Selena last year. She was cosplaying.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's going to do one portrait of her. So I wouldn't have been able to network like this unless it was New York Comic Con. It was just so impressive. Yes, it was my favorite part. It was great to see you guys and hang around with the XM guys, but you know, I can't converse with a statue. You know what I'm saying? So
yep.
meeting up with the artist was a pleasure. And not only that, Adi Granoff and Mark Brooks came up to talk with the XM guys, and we played a role in that, right? So it was great to see the artists come over and see what we're doing too. So yeah, if I go back to New York, it would be largely because of the Artist Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So,
it's it's become my favorite part of any convention, just because I mean, as you collect, your taste changes, or not changes, maybe evolves over time, and when you start enjoying, or you start leaning towards original art, or signatures from artists that you admire, you will tend to ultimately find yourself in Artist Alley.
Yeah,
um, and of course, if you want to get personal commissions, then you want to get there to Artist Alley first day and get on their list. So, but yeah, over time, I mean, I do enjoy original art, and just getting prints signed from artists that you admire. So it's become my favorite. One last question I wanted to ask you guys: how did this convention? How was it different from last year's, since you guys went to?
I felt it
It
to
was
be largely the same. With, I guess the biggest difference was Sideshow. It didn't make a splash at all. If we're just talking the statue side of things, but other than that, it's pretty much how I remembered it. Even a lot of the booths were in the same spot. I think they get first dibs on that
the same
particular
spot. Yeah,
space.
they get the same. Yeah.
So it was even set up largely the same way. So it was almost like we never left.
yeah. I think the one difference between this year and last year was it felt like, oh, I've been here before. I didn't have that first experience type of feeling to it. So sometimes the days felt a little bit longer, believe it or not. um like, so when nighttime comes around, like, what are we doing? But one thing that's interesting, here we are. We went to an art gallery, the J. Scott Campbell Art Gallery, that was at
Hmm.
Metropolis. Well, not Metropolis, what's the name
Nope.
of that
No,
place?
that's what it is. Metropolis
Okay.
Comics, Comic Connect.
Right.
It's the same place.
And we got to see a lot of artwork that they have at this art gallery. It was pricey, but it was beautiful. And on our way back to our hotel, who do we run into in the middle of the street? Tom Hiddleston and Charlie Cox.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's New York, right?
Yep.
So I think next time around, I think I want to take advantage and see more shows while I'm there. And maybe next time Cecilia will come with me. I mean, like, we'll see how it goes. Um, I think this time around, I would have liked to have done more stuff other than the show. And,
Hmm.
we could have done it in less days too. Right, come on a Wednesday, leave on Friday, or leave on Saturday, as opposed to
Yeah.
staying as long as we did.
Yeah.
House of Gog says, "Long live art." I
Yeah, I
second
was
that.
just going to mention House of Gog. So, House of Gog, if people don't know, are gearing up to start shipping their Moonstone statue. It's the first statue of many, hopefully for them, based on the artwork of Pascal Blanche. I hope I'm saying that remotely correct.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. Um, it's a unique piece. It's something that you're not seeing from other companies. So interested to see how that one turns out. So thanks for watching House of Gog, and I'm sure we'll have more to say about their stuff once they start shipping out, which should be soon.
Cool stuff.
Okay, so I guess that's a wrap for New York Comic Con. Lots going on there. It was a lot of fun. As you mentioned, Gina, it was great to see you guys again, or Gina for the first time. It's the first time we met in person.
That's
Um,
right.
it's been a few weeks, so we've probably recovered from the Polynesian now. Uh,
Listen, they put so much alcohol in that. It wasn't. It was just like 3 times as much alcohol.
yeah.
Oh, anyways,
So that was a fun night. So, anyways, thanks to everyone for watching. We'll be back with another episode soon.
See you again soon.
Okay, talk to you
yeah.
guys later.